to Historia.
Oh, I love that you're singing this time. Good job. You already know the drill.
Yes, ma'am.
What's up, everyone? I hope you all are doing fantastic. It is now September.
I am ready for fall season. I already have my fall stuff up.
Whoa, man, I need to catch up on that.
Oh, before we forget, I'm Jamie.
Oh, yes, and I am Kylie. Hello.
You can't forget that.
Welcome to the story of the podcast at Gmail. I mean, wait. I'm sorry, my brain just turned off. Welcome to the story of the podcast. Gmail comes later. Okay. Yeah, fall. Fall's coming up. Okay.
By this time, James has been off to hunting.
Oh, yes. Off in the wilderness.
So I'm by myself. So that means that
all week?
If it takes him that long to find a deer.
Holy shit.
And I know he's going to be super picky about getting one.
If you ever get lonely, just call me. Don't call me, just Snapchat me, but...
You'll be like, why the hell is she calling me? Reject.
I don't think we've ever texted, like, through our actual phones.
No, James and I don't. We only Snapchat each other. Like, occasionally...
So much easier.
Yeah, if TikToks are too long for Snapchat, he'll, like, message me them.
Yeah.
But, like, we never text each other. And my sister finds that so weird because I only really text her through Snapchat, too. And she's like, why can't you just text me? And I'm like... I don't know. I guess they don't want to remember my conversation from 2 months ago.
Snapchat's easier. I don't know. It just feels easier. And then you can see when they read it. And then I feel like it's just a quicker response too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you send a text message and then it gets to them like an hour later. Yeah. Or it never sent. And then like they have to reply. And it's just, it takes longer.
I agree.
And then you can see when they're typing too. So it's like, oh, they're sending me a message.
I know. And it does like their little like bit emoji of like popping up. And then it's like, oh.
Yeah. I love it.
Plus, it's easier because if someone takes like a screenshot, you know.
Mm-hmm. You know it. Mm-hmm. They can't fool you. Anyway.
So, I'll be alone by myself with the pups all week. On my birthday.
We're going to hang out for your B-Day. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's Saturday on my actual birthday. I believe we might go up to the Denver Zoo. In October... Probably like mid to late October. I was planning on going to Elitch's like near Halloween. Mm-hmm. If you're down for that, if you don't have to work,
that'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Just let me know when. What the?
Hello?
I'm guessing Lila went to lay down because she's really loud. She like huffs and puffs whenever she lays down. She's like, and then it's like one leg goes down and then her whole body goes down. It's like 45 pounds.
Dude, Lila and Remy are like the same dog. They are such drama queens.
Mm-hmm.
The younger ones are. I guess
they are.
Layla and Harley just have some maturity, I guess.
I mean, Harley's dramatic too because she literally whines when has any type of issue. Like, ran out of food. No water. Just wants attention. Or when I stop petting her, she goes, she gets so mad. So they're both very dramatic, but in different ways. Lila's very much like, oh, my life is so hard. I have to huff and puff and lay down and be really dramatic. It's like, relax.
I don't have to worry that with Layla because she just stares at shadows all day.
Layla's just like, whoa. What is that?
Dude, she got some like ADHD or something. Like,
she's crazy.
But that's literally their breed, is that they're very responsive and just like kind of quick. It's like because they're fast and that's what they're supposed to do. So like as soon as like something makes a noise, like her head just like bolts like over to the side, and it's just like it's kind of intimidating. So
yeah.
That's our dogs.
So far, my Rottweiler has been the sweetest ever. I love her. She just falls asleep. Like, she sleeps with us now. We don't even keep her in the kennel because she's fine now.
Yeah.
She's potty trained. She's such a quick learner. It's amazing. But, like, I'll wake up in the morning and she's just, like, laying on my shoulder. Like, she loves to cuddle, and I love it because Harley is not a cuddler.
Yeah.
Sometimes she wants to be held for, like, a second, and then sometimes, like, she'll want her, like, stomach rubbed, but like she never just like comes up to you and like lays on you. Like, it's very rare.
She's a little noodle.
Yeah, and then Lila's always just like, pet me, mommy. Okay, fine. I love them. And we got a new bed. We have a king size now, so it's like,
hey, moving up in the world.
Lots of room for her when she's huge.
Sorry,
Speaking of Snapchat.
Literally. He probably took a picture of the dogs. Hold on.
Yeah, we got to see the poppers. I was going to say bring them over.
They would be wild, and then Remy would be a drama queen, and because he has to eat at like 6 o'clock, and if he doesn't eat at 6 o'clock, he just starts getting so grouchy and just
knows
difficult.
the time.
Literally, like if we're in the car going somewhere around 6 o'clock, he'll just whine the entire time.
Okay, well, today I have a very exciting episode.
Ew.
This is one I've been wanting to do since we started the podcast.
Oh.
Because it has a connection to musical theater.
Oh. Okay.
So I'm very excited for this, and this is one of the biggest musicals right now. And so I wanted to kind of research it more because like I knew information about it, but I was like, let's make sure that we learn the real story. So today I'll be talking about King Henry VIII's 6 wives, and the musical's 6.
Okay.
Yeah. When I was in New York City, I wanted to see this show so bad, but it's like the biggest show right now.
Yeah.
And so the tickets were completely sold out. So, and they were very expensive as well.
Dang.
So hopefully one day I can watch the show live, but it's just really good. So I'm going to start part 1 talking about King Henry himself, a little annoying bastard.
Oh.
No, you know how I feel about every king ever. And then we'll talk about the first 3 wives, and then part 2 is the next 3 wives.
Nice.
So it's split down the middle. Pretty nice.
I was not expecting this.
I know. I remember because I think it was like right before I went to New York. I was like, I want to cover that soon. But it felt like the right time because I'm obsessed with the musical. And it's just really fascinating because 6 wives, dude.
That's
really?
a lot of wives.
Yeah. Okay. So their names, just so you kind of know what to expect. We have a lot of Catherines entering the picture. We have Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr. 3 Catherines and 2 Annes, and then a Jane.
How did he decipher them?
Oh, there's a lot.
Catherine 1, come in.
Catherine 1. Luckily, they weren't all at the same time. I mean, some of them kind of, but yeah.
So they were more like mistresses, some of them? That led into like marriage?
Yes, like 1 or 2.
Okay.
We'll get there, yeah. So, King Henry VIII is one of the most famous kings in history. He's known to have a huge appetite for food, wine, power, and, of course, women.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
He loves women. He was very much known to just, like, always have his eye on a new woman, just in case. And so he was always just like, hey, we got to keep an eye out on those women out there because you never know what could happen to my wife.
Oh my
and
God.
He had a horrible temper. And so the second someone did something that pissed him off, he would be done with her. And that's what we see happened 4 times. Well, 5, but yeah, we'll get there. Okay, so he was a king from April 22nd, 1509 until his death in 1547. He was known for his 6 marriages, and he also made radical changes to the English constitution. He was continually on the verge of financial ruin.
Sounds about right.
And he was known to be very attractive, educated, and accomplished. So in his early years, women loved him. Once he kind of developed a reputation, it was a lot harder for him to find a woman.
I mean, I was thinking that he just was gross.
Yeah, and he like, yeah, we'll get there, but yeah, he's just like, he gets to a point where the women are like, oh God, do I have to be with you? But in the beginning, he was very attractive, and he just had a really good education background, so he knew a lot, and women were impressed by that. People called him one of the most charismatic rulers to sit on England's throne. So they really like him.
Dang.
And he had the most important reign in England history. He was also an author and a composer. He's multi-talented. He was born on June 28th, 1919. Nope, not 19. But he was born on June 28th, 1491 in Greenwich, Kent. And he was born to Henry Tudor. Or that was his name, sorry. Henry Tudor was his name. So anytime where the wife would marry him, then they would be Tudor, technically. Oh. I just thought of toot, like fart, farter.
God.
I'm so immature. He was the third child and the second son of King Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. Out of his seven siblings, only 3 of them survived past being a baby. So like infantry, they were the only ones that survived.
Dang.
Yeah, and in 1493, when he was 2 years old, he became the constable of Dover Castle. At 2 years old, that's pretty impressive.
Literally, what's the point?
I know, right? It's like, come on. And then he was appointed as Earl Marshal of England and Lord Lieutenant of Ireland at 3 years old.
Why?
I don't know. And then right after that, he immediately became the Duke of York. They wanted to give powers to him as a young boy to enable his father to retain personal control of lucrative positions. So they're like, if we give this to him, then at least it stays in the family, just in case someone tries to come by and steal it. So they didn't want to share any of the powers with other families. So I think that's why they were trying to get him all the titles that they possibly could from the second he was born. He was not expected to become king. There's not a lot of information about him because of that, because nobody really knew he was going to become king. And so he was kind of irrelevant.
Was he the youngest son out of those 3?
So he was the youngest. Yep.
Okay.
So he received a first-rate education from many tutors. They had the means for him to be able to get that education. He became fluent in Latin and French, and he learned a little bit of Italian. In November 1501, he played a part in his brother Arthur of Wales' wedding to Catherine of Aragon. You might notice that's his first wife's name.
Ooh, yeah. What a stealer.
Yeah, so Arthur was supposed to be king, and he was getting married to Catherine of Aragon. In 1502, however, the next year, Arthur died, and he was only age 15. He died from the sweats. They call it. I think that's like when it gets too cold out, and they like freeze.
So hypothermia,
basically. Sweats. It was just 20 weeks after his marriage to Catherine began. When he died. Yeah,
sucks. He was only 15 when he got married.
Yeah,
gross.
I know, it's bleh. And all of his duties started to become Henry's because he was the next in line. And so at 10 years old, he became the new Duke of Cornwall and the new Prince of Wales and the Earl of Chester in 1504. So even more titles brought to him. Because Henry had all of these titles and he was very special, very special little boy, they kept him away from public because they didn't want anyone to like kill him because they were like, this is our last heir. Like, we have to keep him safe. So he was supervised constantly, and they just kept him away from everyone. And Henry VII wanted to seal a new marital alliance between England and Spain by offering his son Henry to widowed Catherine of Aragon.
Gotta keep those ties.
Yeah. Catherine's mom was like, yes, let's do it. Because they were like, yeah, then we'll keep the ties. So they signed a treaty for their marriage on June 23rd, 1503. He was too young.
And she was from Spain, right?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. They were engaged 2 days later. And Henry VII died before Henry VIII could get married. Henry VII actually ended up dying on April 21st, 1509. So, Henry VIII is 17 years old, and he is now king.
Was it on purpose?
I think it just said he died of sickness, but they always say that. Yeah, they always say that.
Well, they had no idea what was going on.
I know. Henry declared that it was now time to marry Catherine. However, they were missing a dowry, which was a payment from the bride's family to the groom's family. And so he didn't really say anything about it. He was like, we're going to get married because my dad just died. And this was his dying wish. He really wants us to be together. And Catherine was like, okay. Catherine thought he was cute, and she obviously didn't have much of a choice, but she was into him. They ended up having a very low-key wedding at the Friars Church in Greenwich on June 11th, 1509. So let's talk a little bit about wife number 1, Catherine of Aragon.
Sounds so bougie.
I know. And this is probably the most iconic of the wives, the one that's most well known, just because she did make such a big impact, and she was married to him the longest.
Okay.
So she was born in 1485, and she was 24 when they ended up getting married.
Oh, so
because she was married to
lady.
Arthur. Yeah, she's a little older. Together, they set in motion the unification of Spain and Spanish Inquisition. They also launched Christopher Columbus's expedition to the New World.
That's why she's familiar.
Yep. Yeah, I know. That's me too. I was like, okay, that's why I've heard her name. At a young age, Catherine grew up with her mom, who was super powerful, and learned how to be a queen from her. She was very well educated in many areas, including history, music, literature, needlepoint, and the Catholic religion. She was very much into the Catholic religion.
Of course she was.
Yeah,
Spanish.
Exactly. She spoke a few different languages as well, and she loved to read. So some fun facts. When she was 3 years old, she was basically betrothed to Prince Arthur immediately. So they knew that they'd be a great political match. And so from the second she was 3, they're like, we already know who you're going to marry. Yeah, she's the descendant of Edward III of England. And so because of that, this would help her dynasty carry on. So finally, she would marry Arthur. And her and Arthur, they spoke different languages. So it wasn't easy for them to communicate.
So they literally couldn't talk to each other.
Yeah, basically. And then...
You would think they both would have like some sort of language that they both could speak.
Right. And I think, like, I don't know. I know, like, Henry could communicate to her because he knew more languages, but...
His brother probably didn't even care about
Arthur's
that.
like, it was too good to learn a language. But yeah, Arthur ended up dying because of the damp and cold area of his castle. And they both contracted sweating sickness, but she was able to overcome it.
Dang.
She lost a lot of power when he died. And she had to fire her servants, and she had to sell her jewelry in order to eat.
Dang.
And so when it was presented to her that Henry VII wanted to keep her power and even was like, I'll marry you.
Wow.
She was like, Dad, how do you feel about this? And her dad was like, hell no. Step aside. So then he was like, okay, I have another son. And then that's what brought Henry VIII to marry her. She held the position of Spanish ambassador, and she was the first female ambassador of Europe.
Dang.
Yeah. So after King Henry VII died, she married King Henry VIII. He was 18, she was 23, and he was in love with her. Loved her to death. 7 months into the marriage, she miscarried a baby girl.
Aw.
Strike one. A year later, she gave birth to their son, Henry, which would be the new heir. Everyone was super excited for this. They're like, hell yeah, son, woo! You know how they be having big parties. But he died after 50-ish days of life.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. He had an abnormal intestine.
Are they cousins of some point?
Who?
Her and him. Are they related in some way?
He ends up like being involved with her cousin at a different point.
Okay, I was thinking that like maybe them two, or maybe like their family was like a product of some sort of incest, and that's why they were having such problems.
Could have been.
Because that was really big in the Spanish Empire. Was incest.
That could have been. I think she had 5 miscarriages.
That was probably why.
Yeah. I'm sure they were related. But, yeah, so her son died, and Henry's like, come on. You can't even give me a son? But then she just kept trying to have kids, and it just wasn't working out. In 1513, Henry appointed her as regent. He had to go to war in France. During her regency, King James IV of Scotland invaded England.
Oh, God.
And Catherine, who is pregnant, rode north to the head of the army. She gave a speech, and this encouraged them to win the battle. So she was doing all this, like still trying to help out even when she was pregnant. King James was killed in that battle, in case you were wondering. Catherine gave Henry James' blood-soaked coat as a trophy.
Dude, how is he not proud of that?
Well, I think he was like, oh, that's great. Good job.
Is there a child born yet?
Exactly. That's his focus right now, is just like, are we going to have a son? And she did end up delivering a son, but he was stillborn, unfortunately. And then the next year she had another stillborn. So, yeah, it just kept happening year after year. It just was not working out. But at age 30, she finally gave birth to a healthy baby girl named Mary. Henry was sad that it wasn't an heir. He's like, oh man, a girl. And Catherine prayed for a healthy son. She's like, please, like, I don't know what he's going to do to me if I can't give him a son.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to just like drop me from everything. But her 6th and 7th pregnancies ended tragically as well, with the miscarriage.
Jeez.
So she's just trying to focus on her daughter, Mary.
Yeah.
And trying to raise her as best as she can. And she's really focused on Mary getting a good education. Like, that was her primary goal. Mm-hmm. And she really was trying to get as many women in England educated as she possibly could. She was trying to make it like a trend. Like, the smarter you are, the awesomer you are.
Yeah.
Awesomer. Wow. That really proves the point. And Henry's over here like, I want a son. So he's still complaining, because he's thinking of the last time they let a woman dominate England, and he's like, we cannot let Mary do this. The last woman to do it was Matilda, and she lost the throne in a civil war. And so he's like, we can't trust a woman. So what do you do when your wife can't have a son? You hook up with other women to try to have a son. He had one. They call him an illegitimate son, Henry Fitzroy. But he doesn't last very long.
Someone finds out.
And then after 16 years of marriage, Catherine entered menopause.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And Henry was like, excuse me? And so he's ready to move on to the next woman. Mm-hmm. He catches his eye on Anne Boleyn. Now, it was suggested for Catherine to retire to a nunnery. They all were like, let's go in a nunnery. You're fine. You can just live there. So that Anne can come in. And she's like, hell no, I'm not leaving. I've already made my move as a queen. Like, I am rocking it up here. Everyone loves me. Like, everyone truly loved her. And they're like, okay, but like, you're old and we need a young queen to come in here that can give us an heir. Like, you need to get out of the way. Henry was even trying to get a divorce with a Bible verse from Leviticus. And it was kind of about like how it's a sin to marry your brother's widow. And if you do, you'll be childless. And so he's like, it all makes sense. You married me after marrying my brother, and now we can't have a kid. And so he's just trying to like use that as an excuse to be like, see, we can't be together.
Wow.
Yeah. And he even pled with Pope Clement for an annulment. Pope was under siege from the Holy Roman Empire, and that was Charles V, which was Catherine's nephew. So Catherine asked she asked about the legality. That's the word, right? Legality.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, is that right? She's trying to figure out the legality of their marriage, and seeing if it can be tried in the public court. She claimed that their marriage was never consummated because it was never actually like made official because of the, dowry that they never paid.
Yeah.
So it was unlawful the whole time. And this pissed Henry off because even though he wants a divorce, he's like, you're not supposed to tell people. So he's like, oh, how dare you? And then the Pope was like, sorry, y'all can still be together. You'll be fine. And so he decided not to dissolve the marriage. But Henry was like, okay, fine. I'll become the new head of the Church of England. And then I'll get a say in what goes on. So in 1531, Catherine was exiled from the court. Everything that she owned and all of her wealth went to Anne.
Oh, I would have thrown hands.
I know. And so afterwards, Catherine lived in a single room by herself. The only time she left was for mass. She wore a kind of one of those hair shirts, and she fasted always. So she just kind of she was in a nunnery, basically.
Yeah.
In her little nunnery. Henry would not let Catherine and Mary see each other.
Oh, that's fucked up.
I know. But we had some great servants who would secretly kind of pass letters between the two.
Yeah.
And Henry even went to Catherine and said that Catherine could be with Mary if they announce Anne as queen. And Catherine lets go of her reign officially because she never gave consent to let go of it.
Yeah.
So Catherine was like, no, I'm not giving that up. I'm the queen. And then even Mary was like, no, she's the queen.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Catherine died calling herself the king's one true life. So she's like, I was the best thing that's ever happened to him, and he'll never find better than me. And so that's kind of how that ended. She died at age 50. She had a black growth on her heart.
Ooh.
People think Anne possibly poisoned her.
Not be surprised.
Yeah. And you're going to find out more about Anne later. It's very possible. It could also mean that she had cancer. A lot of them were just like, she just had cancer. Henry did not go to her funeral and wouldn't let Mary mourn her.
What a bitch.
I know. And that's just wife number one. And that was his longest marriage. Yeah. So that brings us to Anne Boleyn.
Kick her to the curb.
I know. Anne was born in 1501. She was the daughter of... I meant to put Lady Elizabeth and I put Lazy Elizabeth. She was the daughter of Lady Elizabeth Howard, and her dad was a diplomat. He was sent to the Holy Roman Empire as the ambassador. And this impressed the emperor's daughter, Margaret of Austria, and she offered the position of lady-in-waiting to Anne. So she's like, girl, you have so much potential. You're the new lady-in-waiting. Margaret was impressed with how pretty and nice Anne was for her age. So even at a young age, she was catching the eye of guys, and she was just so sweet. So Anne was later sent to France to attend the Queen of France, which was Henry's sister, Mary. And so she lived at the French court for 7 years and gained a lot of knowledge on different things. Like, she was trying to educate herself just to be kind of like Anne. Mm-hmm. And so she was trying to learn different things like dance, fashion, art, music, and the art of courtly love. She's like, how can I charm him the best? And so she kind of always had this plan to be queen. Mm-hmm. Her older sister, Mary, was also at the French court. Mary conducted affairs, including one with King Henry. And so because of this, Mary was known to be kind of the pretty one. Mm-hmm. So even though Anne was like young, she was known to be more of the smart one that wanted to be educated, whereas Mary was like the pretty one.
Yeah.
And so at age 21, she was called to an arranged marriage to her cousin, James Butler. But it fell through, so she did not have to marry her cousin.
Good.
She then became lady-in-waiting to Catherine of Aragon. She was pretty, but mostly charming because of her wit and humor. She was really funny, and people liked her for that. Mm-hmm. She was a little sassy. But the biggest thing is that she was fashionable. She wore a French headdress, which was shocking because she was showing so much hair. And they're like, oh my God, look at this risque girl. And it actually became a trend. So she started a lot of like French trends kind of passing through, and everyone was like, oh, I want to look like her. She enjoyed hunting, drinking, gossiping, and playing cards. So she was kind of like the fun one who's just there to have a good time. She loved a joke. She loved to make people laugh. So she didn't really take life that seriously. Mm-hmm. And so if you're Anne and you're like, I'm a queen, this is my life, I'm the best, and then you watch this girl who's just making jokes try to take your position, she's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But many young men wanted her attention. She became secretly engaged to Henry Percy of Northumberland, and her father was like, hell no, you will not marry that guy. He did not like him.
Ooh.
So then one day she caught the eye of King Henry, and she was like, it's finally time. I'm going to be a queen. She convinced Henry to leave Catherine and make her Queen of England. Obviously, it took years and years. She had to live with them basically, because she's like, I'm gonna steal your spot, Catherine. And Catherine's like, hell no. I'm surprised Catherine didn't poison her first.
Literally.
Henry obviously thought he'd quickly be able to get an annulment, but it took 7 years for them to become officially divorced. And that was legal battles with Catherine. Catherine's just very stubborn and wants things her way. And she doesn't want to give up her position as queen. Anne was very frustrated about how long it was taking. She was already almost 30, which is middle age back then. And she wanted to be married and be able to have kids. She rejected other men. She was just waiting for Henry. Like, wasn't even worried about other guys. She's just like, I'm going to be queen. We're going to have kids. We got to just speed it up real quick. She didn't sleep with Henry until she knew for sure that she'd have access to their offspring. So she was kind of nervous that, like, he'd get a son and then, like, she would still not be queen. Yeah. So it would be for nothing. So she's like, I refuse until we're married. She even sent spies to bother Catherine until Catherine was out of the way. And she was in the center.
Jeez.
Yeah. In France, she learned about church reform. And she convinced Henry to split with Rome and became the new head of the Church of England. So when he did that, it was because of her. Yeah, she's like, hey, I have an idea. The Catholics accused her of being a witch, of course. And they think that she was putting spells on him to change his beliefs.
Wow. I'm not surprised by that.
There was a rumor that she had like 3 fingers or something. They were like, oh my God, she's such a witch. Like, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
God.
Problems back then. So Anne and Henry got married when they knew the divorce would be finalized. And Anne was pregnant before they got married.
Ooh.
Yeah. The divorce was finalized in May. And in September, Anne gave birth to a healthy baby. So it was pretty quick turnaround there. They had another daughter, Elizabeth. Oy. But Elizabeth becomes huge, so it's a good thing. The couple was really happy and in love for the next 2 years. They were really hoping that they'd have a son. And Henry said that if he was unable to show his masculinity by having a son, he would show it in the tilting yard. He's like, I'll prove it to you. I'm a strong man. Wow. So he was in a joisting match. And he fell from his horse. He was unconscious for 2 years.
What?
Yeah.
He was in a coma for 2 years?
Yeah. So 2 years of his being king, he was in a coma. And he recovered, but he had a leg wound for the rest of his life. So he couldn't really walk.
All because he fell off a horse.
Yeah. Just to prove his masculinity.
What a loser.
Oh. This made him gain a lot of weight and just become very angry.
Sounds about right.
They believe he also had a concussion after this happened and brain damage. And so his temper just got worse and worse. Yeah. Due to the shock of the accident, it really caused Anne to miscarry their second child, which was a son.
Ooh.
Yeah. Henry started to resent her because she was pissed at him for being so angry. Like, she would try to talk to him and he'd be like, screw you! I don't know what he would say, but
yeah,
give me a son. And so she was like, you can't talk to me like that. Like, she stood up for herself. And then she was like, you know what? Screw it. Like, you're just this grumpy guy who just almost lost his life on a horse. She's like, I'm going to go flirt with a bunch of men. So I'll be right back. And so she's just like flirting with people and left and right, like whoever she could see. She was like trying to flirt with people. And everyone decided to tell Henry. Now, he was upset with her for sleeping with other men. He's allowed to do it, but she cannot. It's wrong. At least 5 men came forward saying that they slept with her. And after 2.5 years of marriage, Anne was arrested and brought to the Tower of London. She was tried in court for adultery, incest, and treason. Yeah.
But they don't think that marrying your cousin is incest?
It's a weird time. She begged her husband for mercy. She's like, I'm so sorry, Henry. I'll never do it again. But Henry's like, no, I'm done with you. Get away from me.
Shit.
Anne spent her final days locked in a tower. She composed a poem you can still find today called "O Death, Rock Me Asleep," knowing that she was about to die. The 5 men who were accused of sleeping with her were beheaded on Tower Hill. Yeah, they don't give them any chance.
No.
And then 2 days later, she was burnt at the stake for punishment.
Shit.
Henry decided she should get beheaded instead of being burned at the stake. So they were like, hold on. So he actually hired an expert swordsman from France to do the job quickly and less painfully. On the scaffold, Anne gave a moving speech to the crowd and went before the swordsman with dignity. She was buried in an unmarked grave in a London chapel. And yeah, but she was beheaded that day. Shit. Henry went on to wife number 3 before she was even dead.
Dang.
His favorite wife, Jane Seymour. Yeah. And it's craziness.
Oh my
Isn't
God.
this wild? Yeah. So wife 3, the wonderful Jane Seymour. In the musical, she says the only one he truly loved, because she didn't live long enough to piss him off, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. But they do say that he was genuinely, like, Jane was the one that he loved the most.
Infatuated.
Yeah. So Jane Seymour was born in 1503. She's the daughter of Knight C. John Seymour and Margaret Wentworth. She was less educated than the other two. She had very little skill in reading and writing, but she was really good with needlework. She served as the lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine, and she loved her dearly. She thought Catherine of Aragon was like, love her, she's a queen. Obviously, she was a queen, but like she was obsessed with her. Yeah. She wanted to be just like her. And so she became the lady-in-waiting later to Queen Anne. So once Anne kind of went above her, Anne got to go next, and then she was behind Anne. In February of 1536, a few months before Anne was arrested, Henry took notice of Jane. He was like, oh, she is gorgeous. He wrote her a letter summoning her to the royal bed. However, she left it unopened and sent something back saying that she wanted to get married. And Jane was known to be very gentle and meek. She's very much like your typical mom figure. Yeah. And so she's more of like the calm one. So we had the very powerful queen. We had the messing around, not living, like not being too serious. And then we have this one who's more of like the mom. She came from a large family, and this was a sign that she could produce a lot of kids, including sons. The day after Anne's execution, Henry and Jane were engaged, and they were married 10 days later. Because of outbreaks of the plague, her coronation was postponed. Henry also wanted her to prove that she could have a son before giving her the queen title. So he's like, once you have a son, you get the queen title. She was known to be very strict, very conservative, and not as fun as Anne was. Anne was very much into like getting everyone together, having music going, entertainment. This was not big anymore at the court. Jane was like, no, none of that. Jane banned the French fashion that Anne introduced.
Holy shit.
Yeah, she was like, come on, let's dress more conservatively. She went by the saying that she was bound to obey and serve. That's what she lived by, and that's what she thought her purpose was. She got involved in politics one time, to beg the king for mercy for the rebel of the pilgrimage of Greece. Henry reminded her about what happened to his first wives when they meddled in his affairs. Oh, he's like, you better watch out. Ooh. Don't mess with me. And Jane was like, you're right. I will never talk again. I'm so sorry.
I will never talk again.
Yeah. Jane loved Catherine of Aragon, and so she tried to convince Henry to invite Mary back to court. Jane and Mary were super close, so that's now her daughter. Yeah. And everyone liked Catherine more than Anne. So because they saw that Jane loved Catherine, everyone loved her as well, the common people. They didn't like Anne. She was a little too wild.
Yeah. Well, she was young.
Yeah. Henry lost his only son. That was the illegitimate Henry Fitzroy. He died from tuberculosis at age 17. Oh. So yeah, he only lived 17 years.
Dang.
In 1537, Jane stayed in confinement due to pregnancy. They were like, if she's pregnant, we have to take good care of her because this could be the heir. Like, let's make sure, nothing goes wrong. So they really tried that. In September 1537, after 3 nights of labor because the baby was breached, she delivered a healthy son.
Damn.
This is probably why she was his favorite.
Probably.
He was baptized a few weeks later. But unfortunately, Jane was ill due to an infection from the childbirth. She was slowly dying. She died in October at the age of 29 years old.
Oh my God.
And she was only queen for 17 months.
Oh my God.
she was the only one of the 3 wives to actually receive a funeral, a royal funeral, like how they would normally. Henry was devastated because he really loved her, and he wore black for 3 months to mourn her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it actually took him a while to get to the next wife because he couldn't move on from this. This was like devastating to him.
Well, that's because she gave him a son.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's definitely a big part of it, obviously.
I think if she gave him a girl, he would not have reacted that way.
Right. And I think because she also knew when it was time to like not talk back to him.
Yeah.
That's why she never pissed him off like the others. Because she knew of his temper.
Well, she probably knew everything that was going on, and she was probably smart enough to be like, yeah, I'm not going to touch that.
But that's part 1. That was the first 3 wives. Part 2, we'll talk about the next 3.
Ooh.
Very exciting. It just gets crazier from here.
So intrigued with this. I want to go see the play now.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to talk a little bit about it at the end.
Yeah.
I actually found a bootleg of it today. So I was watching it.
Oh.
And it's so good because I've only ever heard the music, and then like actually seeing kind of what's behind the music. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But yeah, it's really good. But anyway.
This is intense.
So divorced, beheaded, died. That's what they say in the beginning of the musical. And then the next 3, just so you know what to expect: divorced, beheaded, survived.
Ooh.
All right. So that's your sneak peek for next week. All right.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yes, I had a blast researching this. I was just
I bet.
This is the tea.
Yes.
This is the absolute tea.
I love it. I'm here for it. I'm ready for it.
All right. Part 2 will be coming to you guys shortly.
Yeah, so where can you find us?
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Historia the Podcast. And now I can say the Gmail part. You can also email us at historiathepodcast@gmail.com.
Yay! We'll catch you next week.
Yay! Bye!
Bye!
Dum, dum.